That illustrates the difference between being an innovator or being an imitator as a nation. That means that 88% imitates here, whereas 12% innovates. And you can't innovate in a high-cost environment. It's just not possible. And relevance means you need to understand what people value, and that means you truly need to understand things like the concept of value. What do I value? And value comes in 3 flavors, you know, and we tend to forget 2 of them. It comes in what we call instrumental value. So this pen is worth something to me because I can write with it. It's worth something to me because what I can use it for. That's the one we normally look at. And the extreme dimension of that is money. Money is worth something to me because of what I can use it for, and not in its own right. Then we can go to the middle bit. That's where Uncle Scrooge sits with money, you know. He wants money because of what it is in itself. He has no intention of ever using it, right? That's what you have on a painting that your daughter made for you when she was 3 years old for your birthday, you know. You love it, it has a high value for you, but try to sell it on eBay. You won't get nothing for it. So it holds no instrumental value in that sense, right? And then you have extrinsic value. This is something where, you know, the only reason this is worth something to me because it's worth something to you. You know, that's the world of the politician. You know, I don't care if this thing works. I only care if my electorate likes it. That's an extrinsic value statement. That's the same thing as why you put a brand on the outside of the sleeve in Tokyo, you know, on this area, because the part of the value is that other people know that they have that brand, right? So it's the extrinsic component of the value. And what we tend to forget that even in business-to-business environments, these things are critical. So when we go home and make an investment calculation, if we only limit ourselves to the left, we have missed something. We need to understand how to play these things. Why do people pay more for an Audi than they do for a car with similar performance which has a name that you may not know? Right? It's not because of the instrumental side. It's because of the other things. Right? Why do you want the latest technology? Well, it's purely smack bang in the middle. It has nothing to do with instrumental. It's nothing to do with extrinsic. It's because it's good in its own right, whether you can use it or not. Right? So we need to understand these things and how we can extract value from them. I'm going to do it. Sorry, there was something jumped there. So in this domain, we have to aim for high value add. And scale is difficult. If we can get it by outsourcing, fine. If we can't, we have to go for low volume. Niche product service system offerings. This is normally true for SMEs. The guys that grow larger, they tend to go for high volume by being clever on how to extract scale by working with other countries and so on. But that's normally around mature technologies. And let me try to visualize for you. I haven't drawn the picture, but let's do one of those consulting 2x2s, okay? So on the x-axis, you have maturity of technology. For the right, it's very mature, very new, and for the left, it's very mature. And on the other axis, we have R&D intensity, right? So high up, it's high R&D intensity, and then it's low. So that gives us, in a sense, 4 squares. There's only one square that you will be able to maintain your location in a high-cost country, and that's the top right. New technology with high R&D intensity. Because there it needs to be co-located, and it's something that other people can't do. All the other ones, you will temporarily have it with you, and then it will migrate. Mature technology, high R&D intensity, will migrate to low-cost countries, by definition. And the production will migrate first, and then R&D will migrate, because they live together. Right? And on the low end, you will co-locate with the customer initially where you start up, because lead customer is critical in that domain. And then you will find that your biggest lead customer is somewhere else, and then you will move a company next to them. So in a low-cost environment, you can be in 3 locations. In a high-cost environment, you can only be in 1. And one of the issues that we have been very tough about, coming towards the end now, in the world I come from, is that we have also raw materials with comparative advantages. You have 4 groups, in my opinion. You have mineral resources, you have agricultural raw materials, you have what I call low density space and biodiversity, which is great for tourism. Right? And you have education. You have a big education industry, produces a lot of educated people. Right? These are resources in which you have a comparative advantage. And then you sell them. End of story. Right? We don't do that. We then say, great, now let's have that as an input to an industry to which we create competitive advantages that add value to these things. So we dig up our iron ore from the world's most expensive to operate unmanned iron ore mine north of the Arctic Circle. It's actually the world's largest iron ore mine underground, right? You know, got huge number of kilometers of roads with nobody on them, and lots of funny automated vehicles, right? But we don't sell this, then we at least add value to it. And a lot of it then go to some specialist steel producers that produce steel that nobody else can produce, right? And sell it expensively. But most of that steel goes to companies like Sandvik and SKF, who then adds value to these things, who then provides the tools and the inputs to the people like Scania who make trucks and sell them. So we keep a huge chunk of value creation listed to that raw material in the country. So we think very much about clusters, which is a critical issue on these things. And I have the mining cluster on the left in Scandinavia. I have the Ontario one in Canada on the right, which, by the way, has done exceedingly well using the same principles, building an industry around that resource scenario. And I'm just going to give you a few numbers. This is the Finnish, we call it fiber chain cluster, paper and pulp and trees and stuff like that, right? And what you have here is some interesting numbers. If you look at this, you can see that left you have, it's not only trees, right? It's information technology companies servicing these type of activities. It's manufacturing technology for the machines that are being used. It's the construction companies using wood technology in these things. It's the biotechnology around genetic things to generate the trees, how you do things to make them grow, how to extract smart chemicals from the raw materials. There's energy, there is chemicals, there is, you name it. It's a whole pile of things around that core, which is the forest industry. In Finland, these guys, Finland is an economy more or less exactly like Victoria. It has the same geographical size. It has 4.5 million people. The forest industry cluster employs 200,000 people, right? And it generates a total production value of 20 billion euros. And that's not bad. Right? And a lot of these companies are exceedingly profitable. That's because we don't subsidize somebody to produce wood chips that we ship to Japan. Right? We actually ensure that we get value for what we sell at a very high price. And we are extremely innovative in these things. We just released transparent paper. Right? So the issue here is that I have a great belief in the future of Australia. You have many, many good companies. And that's great. I mean, your largest manufacturing firm is doing exceedingly well. That's CSL. It's your largest manufacturing firm by capitalization. Doing exceedingly well. But a lot of firms really need to change their mindset. And this will not happen by itself. It will require a dramatic reflection by management of the firm, because at the end of the day, the responsibility for the well-being of the firm sits with the firm's management. It does not sit with government, all right? It sits with the firm's management. Now, government has a role to play, and the government's role is to facilitate firms to make this transition, but also to kick them in the backside. No, because you cannot afford to lose these firms. Because if you lose manufacturing, you're going to lose a lot of other things. And that is a debate that I have not seen understood here. You will lose your universities because nobody will demand R&D. You will lose your service firms because there's nobody to sell to, and there's nobody who wants to sell services. So you will have an economic desert in which you will make money from selling dirt, which is going to employ very few people because that industry is going people-less. So I don't think you have a choice. You have to do something, and you have to migrate mentally from a low-cost environment to a high-cost environment. And if you do that, you can do very well indeed. Thank you.